We're talking about the 4 pillars that make up a happy retirement. Welcome to Saturday State of Mind. I'm Jess Panico, joined by Mike Panico.
In full disclosure, what we're about to go over here is not our own ideation. Jess, you and I are big fans of Arthur Brooks. My understanding is at the Harvard Business School, he's had the most sought after class for, I don't know if it's decades at this point, but for a really long time, one of the most difficult classes to attend.
Yeah, it's like the number one most chosen elective is his course.
Yeah, and he's the professor of happiness. I don't think that's the official title, but that's what the class is about. And first of all, there's a couple really interesting things about this that we can just wet your whistle with. Number one, happiness is a formula. Mm-hmm. And having studied this for that long, this guy's kind of laid out a framework. If you want to have a happy, fulfilling life, these are the things that you should focus on. And the other thing that's really interesting about it is that it's not a destination. To your point, it's not like if you win the lottery and come into a big windfall and there's a bunch of money that all of a sudden you'll be happy for the rest of your life. Or when you watch those old kids movies, happily ever after. Mm-hmm. Being happy is a process. It's a journey. It's something you have to continuously work on because we're just kind of wired as human beings to always be a little bit agitated, to always want more, to compare ourselves to others. So you always have to kind of reinvent yourself and realign yourself along the pillars that we're about to discuss to maintain yourself in a direction that's pointed towards being more happy as opposed to the opposite.
All right, well, let's get right into it. We've got 4 pillars, and this makes up happiness. Pillar number 1 we're talking about is faith. And Arthur talks, this doesn't necessarily mean religion, but it means having faith in something that's just bigger than you.
Yeah. So, oftentimes it is religion, but absent that, your life has to be something more than just waking up and having a meal and going back to sleep
What's
later.
it all for? What are we doing this for?
You got to have purpose in your life. And in retirement, that purpose might be at least slightly vacated because for a lot of people, purpose for the longest time was work.
Right. It was your career. It's what you were doing every day. Here, I feel a tremendous amount of purpose because I think that you and I and everyone that works at Arcadia gets to create this impact for other people. We're helping people retire and feel confident and living more Saturdays. And I, right now, have a great sense of purpose. But I can understand maybe if I retire, what is this new sense of purpose? What am I still getting out of bed, putting on the pants for every day?
Yeah, and it oftentimes has to be something outside of yourself, bigger than you. So giving back to your family or the community, those, are hallmark examples because they work and they do matter. Being somebody that your family can count on, being present, being out there helping others. Just being in the moment and focusing on something other than just your own needs and wants. What you find is that people on the one hand only focus on themselves versus listen guys, this is just Harvard Business School talking versus people who are out there focused on something bigger. Those folks are just on the whole more happier than the former.
Yeah, maybe it's about leaving a lasting legacy, teaching the younger generations, the values that you so closely own and possess. I think faith is a super important pillar that we have here. Moving on to the second pillar for happiness in retirement, family. And that shouldn't really be a surprise to anybody. And I don't know exactly
I think it might be just depending on how your family is.
Okay, well, that's true. But what I was going to say about family is I don't think this necessarily means your kin because I have some very close friends and they're like my family.
Sure.
So it's about connection, I think is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and you've got to nurture that stuff. It's like tending a garden. If you haven't seen family for a while because you've been too busy with work or distracted or just timing hasn't worked out because of seasonality or whatever, you turn your back and then you look again towards the garden and it's full of weeds and things are kind of dying on the vine because relationships, like any other living organism, need nurturing. You need to water those things, tend to them, get the weeds out. And it can be an exercise not only in reaching out to others, but also improving yourself. It was kind of a half tongue-in-cheek comment when I said, for some people, they don't look at family as a source of happiness. They look at it as a source of misery. So to some extent, you might have to be selective. What relationships do I want to maintain versus maybe moving away from if I can? And for those relationships where if I do put in some time and energy, am I going to get reciprocal, energy back? You have to focus in on that and make time for it.
I think it's hard too because in retirement, you're not going to work every day. You might not be picking up the grandkids or dropping them off or joining the PTA. And there might be more opportunity that you're in your home alone or maybe with a spouse. So you actually have to work, like put an effort and energy into maintaining relationships with people. I'm reading actually a really great fictional novel right now, but it's about this woman in her 70s, and she spends time writing and sending mail all the time. And that's how she keeps up, on her relationships through this correspondence. It's kind of a lost art. People are losing like connection with like those loved ones they have like around them, because maybe in retirement you're not so much interested in like taking those drives or going out late at night. Like it's hard to see, but what's to stop us from writing a letter or sending a postcard to somebody?
Right. I mean, when you let somebody know that you care, however you do it, by letter is certainly awesome, Jess, but even if it's in just person, having a glass of wine with somebody, not only telling them that means the world to that person receiving it, because just receiving love feels incredible, but being the person who sees the difference that comment or that letter made to that person, that's also, it fills your own cup. It's amazing.
Right. So we're halfway through the pillars. Subscribe now if this has been helpful for you. Pillar number 3, a broader sense, I guess, is a community that you have and what type of interaction you have with the community that surrounds you. So maybe a little bit outside of the friends and the family, but it's, where you live, who you interact with, how you're contributing to a sense that's a purpose that's a little bit larger than you.
You see a lot of people that kind of cloister themselves when they retire. Work was their purpose, and it's not just their purpose in some cases. Work was their social life. Mm-hmm. It was the people that you interacted with, talked politics with. Hey, did you watch football this weekend? And then you get removed from that community. And for some people, it's harrowing to go, I don't know, by the park and strike up a conversation with a stranger, maybe join a new group or an activity. So you get cloistered off from those folks. You can become isolated. And that's really going to affect things like happiness, because if you're on your own, God forbid, if you actually start becoming lonely, that's moving in an opposite direction from feeling fulfilled and happy.
Well, I think that tremendously affects your mental health too. And certainly that, along with aging, can be very challenging for individuals. I think, they say that the most common innate desire of human beings is the feeling or the sense of belonging.
Yeah.
It's part of something. And if you're retiring maybe from this career, these people that you went in every day and you had your purpose and it was Taco Tuesday and you had a schedule, it's a little meandering and the days kind of blend together. So by, investing in this third pillar in community, like making an impact where you are, creating that own schedule for yourself, that can really lead to happiness in retirement.
Yeah, you're absolutely not wrong. Something that you said just made me remember that they did a study similarly on solitary confinement, right? Mm-hmm. And they found just within a matter of days, people would mentally start to unravel. Like when you lose...
days, that's crazy.
When you lose anchoring, like we're social creatures, when you don't have the ability to make connections, bounce ideas, share feelings, get emotions off your chest with other like-minded people, you get disconnected from the earth and from reality. And so, there's this thing that you hear people say, like, we should check in on so-and-so. I haven't seen them in a while. Like you literally innately worry about people that are removed from the social strata, right? So the message I think here, Jess, is that no one's claiming this is easy. When you get removed from a routine, you've been working for a while and there was a daily grind and people that you saw at the front desk and that you had lunch with, it can be difficult to replace that. But you might have to think about going outside your comfort zone, finding new groups, new friends, new activities where there's others around. Because listen, the formula that's been studied here is being out in the community absolutely matters if you're going to have a life that's a happy one.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we talked about faith. We've talked about family. We've talked about community. The fourth and final pillar here that our buddy Professor Brooks talks about is meaningful work. It's about contributing. It's about doing something that you just feel like you're giving back, you're making an impact. How do you replace that when you're not working anymore? Maybe it's mentoring, maybe it's, creating ideation, just that you're actually contributing something meaningful, right?
Yeah. So this is a funny one, right? Because we're the retirement people.
Yeah.
And we just said,
Work.
You get this
Get back to work there.
Yeah, there's 4 parts to happiness, and one of them is work. And so it's like, well, wait a minute. I'm supposed to be retired. I want to get away from work. But having a set, like a comment I make to some people is, when does a beer taste the best?
After a hard day's work.
After a hard day's work, right? It's like, it feels good to get a reward on the other side of working for it. If you just get something unearned, it doesn't feel that good, right? Mm-hmm. So when you say work, it doesn't mean that I need you to go into a tunnel and mine for coal or something.
Right. I think it's purpose, but without pressure, without obligations. I got to get in there every day. Like, I can't take a day off, anything like that. It's giving back, it's contributing, but maybe along your own timeline.
Yeah. And the idea too is that you can define what that work is. And it doesn't have to be work, like punching a clock somewhere. It could be volunteering, it could be coaching, it could be giving back to somewhere in the family, filling in a hole as needed where somebody needs a helping hand, that sort of deal. But the idea being is that on the other end of doing something, there's a reward for it that required some effort, because there is just, I don't know if it's like an endorphin or a serotonin, like, Jess, you know this stuff better than I do, but there's something that gets released neurochemically when I worked for something and I'm experiencing the reward for it. So that's the connection that people need to realize, is that it's just not grinding away that makes you happy. It's grinding away towards something that delivered a reward or had purpose or impacted others.
So if you're getting ready to retire, not only should you be saying, do I have enough money, but check in on these other 4 pillars. What's your faith like? Your friends, your community? If this was helpful, hit subscribe and check out our episode on how to make every day in retirement matter. See you next time.